Let's delve into the foggy streets of Victorian London, specifically in Whitechapel, in 1888. Surely you've heard of Jack the Ripper. But today we are not going to focus on the murders, but on the correspondence and letters that the killer supposedly sent. Letters that terrorized the society of the time and that still send chills down the spine today. We will analyze 3 letters: Dear Boss, From Hell, and the Openshaw letter. Were they macabre jokes, sensationalist publicity, or genuine messages from the Ripper? That is the question we will try to answer. Let's start by remembering the context of Jack the Ripper's reign of terror. Imagine those streets shrouded in fog, the palpable fear on every corner, and the press fueling collective hysteria. A perfect scenario for the appearance of all kinds of speculations and, of course, for the proliferation of letters, hundreds of them. But no one knows for sure if any are authentic. Let's start with Dear Boss, received by the Central News Agency on September 25, 1888. It is the first letter that uses the nickname Jack the Ripper, written in red ink full of misspellings and with a boastful tone that makes your hair stand on end. It threatens to cut off a victim's ears, and the chilling thing is that 3 days later, Catherine Aaron's body is found with an earlobe cut off. Coincidence? Most experts believe that Dear Boss is a forgery, probably the work of journalist Frederick Best of the Star newspaper, known for his desire for sensationalism. It's curious, isn't it? Even if it's a forgery, this letter gives us an idea of the media impact of the case. The press was looking for articles, and perhaps Best saw an opportunity to create an even bigger story. Without a doubt, the Dear Boss letter, authentic or not, contributed to creating the image of the Ripper that endures to this day. But what was Best looking for? Simply to sell more newspapers or to influence the investigation? It is a question that invites us to reflect on the role of the media in this type of case. And speaking of playing with the investigation, let's move on to the next letter, From Hell. Sent to George Lusk, president of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, on October 15, 1888, its tone is different from Dear Boss, less theatrical, more direct, even cold. And here comes the most disturbing thing: the letter came with a package containing half a human kidney. Half a kidney. The letter claimed that it belonged to Catherine Eddowes, from whom a kidney had indeed been removed. At that time, medical opinion could not determine if it was really Eddowes' kidney or a macabre joke, and to add more mystery, both the original letter and the kidney were lost. It's a shame because a current analysis of the kidney could have shed light on the authenticity of the letter. Without a doubt, From Hell is perhaps the most disturbing letter. If Dear Boss was a possible publicity stunt, here the intention seems much darker. The question is, who would send something like that? Was it the Ripper playing with the police, with Lusk, with the whole society? It's chilling. It's as if he wanted to demonstrate his power, his control over the situation. And if it really was him, what does that tell us about his psychological profile? It is a fascinating enigma that we will analyze further in the next part of our immersion. For now, I leave you with this question. Do you think the inclusion of the kidney was an attempt to divert the police's attention or a sign of the killer's cruelty? Let's resume our immersion into the mystery of Jack the Ripper's letters. We have reviewed the context of terror in Whitechapel and examined 2 of the most famous letters, Dear Boss and From Hell, both full of gruesome details and shrouded in doubt about their authenticity. It's curious how each letter offers us a different perspective, even through deception. Dear Boss seems like a play, while From Hell is brutally direct, almost primitive. Precisely, and that difference in language is a fundamental clue, not only to try to determine the authorship but to understand the mind of the possible author, or at least the perception that was had of him. Let's start with Dear Boss. There are misspellings, yes, but the language is quite elaborate, even theatrical. Phrases like, I love my work, or, keep this letter secret until I have done a little more work, seem taken from a Gothic novel. That dramatic tone is what makes many researchers suspicious. It seems a deliberate attempt to create a character, to fuel the legend. And if Best's intention in writing Dear Boss was precisely that, not only to create a sensationalist story but to shape the image of the Ripper in the public's mind. It's a possibility. After all, fear is fueled by uncertainty, by the unknown, and what better way to create that terrifying image than by attributing a theatrical personality, a taste for the macabre spectacle, to the killer. On the other hand, From Hell, written in a much simpler, rougher, even childlike language, and yet it is the one that contains the most macabre event, the kidney. Which is even more disturbing, that mixture of cruelty and clumsiness in writing. It could indicate an attempt to disguise his true way of speaking, to mislead the police, making them believe that it is someone less educated. Of course, at that time there was a lot of speculation about the Ripper's identity. Some believed he was a doctor, others that he was a butcher, even a member of royalty. If From Hell was his work, that possibility of a cultured author playing the decoy gained strength. It's a fascinating game of clues, but let's go back to the Openshaw letter. The last one we are going to analyze was sent to Dr. Openshaw, who coincidentally had examined the kidney sent with From Hell. And here the question we asked ourselves before arises again. Why would the Ripper write to a surgeon? Was he looking for some kind of recognition from someone who could appreciate the mastery of his crimes? It's an interesting theory. Perhaps he was looking for a different type of validation than the one offered by the Ripper Press. Despite being a brutal killer, he was an individual who sought notoriety, who wanted to leave his mark on history. And what better way to do it than by addressing someone who had been in contact with his work, with that part of him that the press could only imagine. The Openshaw letter shows us an individual who not only seeks terror but also fascination, recognition from someone who, in a way, is on his same level, at least in terms of knowledge of the human body. What is even more disturbing, the Openshaw letter stated that the police had not managed to stop him and that there would soon be more victims. It was as if he wanted to make it clear that he was still in command, that the macabre game continued. And precisely that feeling of constant threat from an invisible and unpredictable enemy is what contributed to fueling the collective hysteria in Whitechapel. People lived with the fear of being the next victim, and the letters, authentic or not, only amplified that feeling of terror. But beyond the terror, these letters, and especially the Openshaw letter, raise a fundamental question. What was the Ripper really looking for? He just a killer in search of blood, or was there something else, a desire for notoriety, for recognition, that drove him to write these letters? To try to answer this question, we must delve into the forensic analysis of the letters, and that is where science and history intertwine to try to unravel the mystery. We have analyzed the language, the tone, the chilling threats, the possible motivations. But what does science tell us about the authenticity of these letters? Can we trust science to unravel a mystery more than a century old? It's a complicated question. Forensic science has advanced a lot in recent years, but analyzing evidence from 1888 presents a unique challenge. Let's start with the handwriting. Numerous experts have compared the handwriting of the letters with samples from the time, even with those of suspects. And what have they discovered? Can the Ripper be identified by his handwriting? It's not that simple. Handwriting can be a useful tool, but it is also susceptible to subjectivity. Also, if the Ripper wrote the letters, he might have disguised his handwriting on purpose. Of course, that would complicate things even more. If we cannot trust the handwriting, what other options do we have? In recent years, DNA analysis has become a fundamental tool in criminal investigation. DNA analysis has been performed on the letters looking for traces of saliva, skin, any biological material that could identify the author. And have they found anything? Any clue that brings us closer to the true identity of the Ripper? The results have been interesting to say the least. In the Openshaw letter, for example, DNA was found that could match that of Walter Sickert, the painter we mentioned before. That means Patricia Cornwell was right, that Sickert was the Ripper. We must be cautious. DNA tests are not infallible, especially when it comes to such old samples. Contamination over the years is a factor to consider. So, after all this analysis, can we say with certainty whether any of these letters were written by Jack the Ripper? Has science managed to unravel the mystery? To this day, no. Forensic science has given us some clues, has opened new avenues of research, but the mystery remains unsolved. It's curious, isn't it? Despite all the technological advances, we still don't know who Jack the Ripper was. And perhaps that is part of his appeal, of the fascination he continues to arouse. Without a doubt, these letters are an enigma that connects us directly with the terror of Whitechapel, with the mind of a killer who remains a shadow. Although we may never know for sure who wrote them, they remind us of the power of the mystery of the unknown and our incessant search for answers. A mystery that, despite the years, continues to captivate us, inviting us to delve into the shadows of Victorian London in search of the truth. And although the Ripper's identity remains an enigma, the letters offer us a window into his world, his way of thinking, of playing with the police, with the press, with the whole society. A macabre game that, despite its crudeness, traps us, fascinates us. It reminds us that reality can be more chilling than any fiction. And so far our investment in the mystery of Jack the Ripper's letters. A journey to the heart of Victorian terror where reality and fiction intertwine in a labyrinth of clues and speculations. We hope you have enjoyed this investment as much as we have. Remember that the mystery remains open, and that the next clue could be waiting for you around the corner. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, you would help me a lot if you subscribed to the channel and gave it a like. And don't forget to leave a comment. I love reading your opinions and suggestions to continue creating content that you like. Until next